Let's cross live now and speak to Jamal Benomar, former UN Under-Secretary General and chair of the International Centre for Dialogue Initiatives. Jamal, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on The World Today. What do you think should happen next?
Well, first, there needs to be some vision on how this transition will proceed. We don't have really enough elements, to judge whether there is a plan. I think a plan is lacking. In a situation like this, it's very important, for the Syrians to come together through an inclusive process and develop a roadmap for the future, a roadmap on how to move from the dictatorship that they lived under for decades to hopefully democratic governance. They need to answer many delicate questions. Well, the first one is how to deal with the legacy of past human rights violations. There is demand for justice, but there have been failed experiences like the de-Baathification in the country next door, Iraq, that didn't work and contributed to the rise of an insurgency. In this case, there needs to be clarity on how to deal with those who were responsible for the past violations in a way that satisfies the demand for justice, but also allow the country to move forward. But very important, people want to change and they want to move to democratic rule, and it means elections. Early elections, delayed elections, something in between. This is something that the Syrians will have to decide. But we have seen in various post-conflict settings the rush through elections backfiring. In countries where there are no real institutions that can manage conflict, it's very difficult to unleash elections, unleash competition that comes through elections.
If you can explain to me, possibly, Jamal, where is this smooth transition going to come from? Who is the facilitator going to be? Are they going to be from another country, from a group of countries? Are they going to come internally? Because it feels, doesn't it, that the process to succeed in the way that you're saying, to avoid the Libya-Iraq scenario, there needs to be some sort of facilitator to help move things forward in the right direction.
Well, I'm a former UN envoy who lived through many transitions in many conflict countries. And one lesson, that can draw from these past experiences is that the transition process is more likely to be successful if it's led by the people of this country, not by outsiders. So my inclination is for me to encourage Syrians to develop homegrown initiative, homegrown solutions, and for the process to be facilitated by Syrians themselves. All the countries, international actors involved in Syria have interest. And that's why the conflict dragged on for all these years. The UN was really never allowed, to be an impartial actor and an active actor and the center of mediation in the past 13 years. The UN was very much low-key most of the time, if we exclude the early days when Kofi Annan and Lakhdar Brahimi were the UN envoy. After that, the UN was marginalized. But anyway, my advice to the Syrians is that they need to develop themselves, their own process, and through which they can develop a design of or a plan for this transition with timelines and milestones.
Okay.
And they need to decide on that delicate balance on when elections can be held.
Okay.
But for elections to be held, and there's going to be a push for that, there needs to be a legal framework. There needs to be a constitution. How this constitution is going to be written, we don't know. But
Okay.
the one thing we know is that in these situations, if the constitution is not drafted through a participatory, open, transparent, inclusive process, things will get out of control. It wouldn't work. For the constitution to be sustainable, it needs to come through a genuine local, participatory and open process.
Okay. Jamal, thank you very much indeed for that. I'm afraid we're out of time. Jamal Benomar, thank you once again for taking the time to speak to us on The World Today.